What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with NIO stock, what's going on with the overall market, and break down some very important technicals on it, and what's going on with all these different tickers. But before I do anything like this, before I answer the question about whether or not NIO could bounce next week, in my opinion, let me just mention a couple of things. I'm personally not a financial planner, so take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. The offer ends very soon, and it's in just about 6 days, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with NIO and the market. NIO is down 0.3% as of right now. If you look at the stock right here, it's still looking relatively weak as it's continuing to downtrend. However, NIO is showing some signs that it wants to bounce around this $10 area, and right now, there wasn't really any really bad fundamental news to cause NIO to tank like this. Because remember, when NIO had its earnings, the margins weren't necessarily the best, and they did miss on EPS and revenue, but they ended up giving us some very strong deliveries, which helped the share price start to push up even higher temporarily. So their deliveries have been strong. Their numbers have been very, very good. The reason why they're tanking has less to do with the company itself and more to do with geopolitical factors. Because if you look at what's happening today, President Joe Biden and let me just close this. Sorry about that, guys. Biden and Modi, who is the Prime Minister of India, they're actually meeting very, very soon. They're going to be meeting at a conference, and this is very, very important because of the fact that we're seeing tensions just building between these different countries, and that is playing somewhat of a role in why we're seeing some different pressures. There is news that China had banned its governmental officials from using iPhones, and then on top of this, we had some weak Chinese data. We saw some contraction in their economy as well. We saw their exports dropping as well. So all of these things together are causing many Chinese tickers to start to slow down. But despite that, despite the fact that that kept on happening and all these negative pieces of news, NIO had relatively strong deliveries. If I just pull up their Twitter page and show you their deliveries, they did over 19,000 deliveries in just the month of August. So there are people talking about how there's slowdowns in China. China's failing, this and that. Well, yeah, I mean, you can make that argument, right? Things are still contracting over there. But if we just go down on the Twitter page, let me just show you the numbers one more time. They're just like right here. They still did over 19,000 deliveries in August, their second best of all time. And they're still giving us some high deliveries. If they keep this up with their very popular models, especially as we approach Q4, the future could still be very bright for the company, in my opinion. Now, on top of this, NIO also tweeted some great scenery in Norway. You can see that there are cars over there. They're getting more and more popularity. And it just looks really, really aesthetic with the beautiful landscapes in the background. So very awesome stuff. Great looking pictures. It just shows how popular NIO is becoming and how great their cars still look. But despite how good their cars are looking, I just have to note that there are these external factors that are affecting the company outside of their vehicles, outside of their expansions, and we have to be prepared for this for a little bit longer. Now, I think things are going to improve big time for the share price as we get into Q4, and we're getting very close to it. Just get ready, guys. But until then, the market historically does tend to slow down for the month of September. If you look at NIO's seasonality data, September/October tend to be like weaker months. September tended to be a little bit better for NIO, but October tends to be weaker historically. But this time around, even September could be weak for NIO because of the whole market. September tends to be the weakest month of the year for almost the entire market, from SPY to the other tickers out there. So there's no surprise that NIO is getting dragged down. On top of this, the price price ratio is a little weak, so there is still some relative weakness, not as strong as before. And Mondays tend to be green about 49% of the time. I also want to add that when it comes to NIO, we're continuing to see a decline in the amount of shares shorted. So it's not being shorted very hard despite how it's dropping. 22 million was the volume so far today. We're almost at the end of the day today. And the overall short volume is increasing just a little bit relative to price. So slight increase, but nothing too wild so far. There's been some talk about NIO's margins. Their margins just haven't been the best. They did miss on guidance, but I think that their deliveries are going to get stronger and stronger over time. I'm still very optimistic for the longer term. For the short term, there are hardships that are getting in their way from the macroeconomic factors, but I'm still very, very excited for what's about to come. So what about for next week? Could NIO get some kind of bounce? Here's my answer. If you look at Aapl, Aapl has a big event coming out. Apple is starting to respect an uptrend. Since yesterday, since we dropped, we've been uptrending since. I know Apple's kind of like sinking right now, but that's okay because it still is on an uptrend overall and still looking all right. And we're about to get a bullish cross on the PPO as long as we see some upside. Now, next week, okay, when we approach next week on Monday, Apple has a very, very big event ahead of us. Apple is going to be unveiling potentially the iPhone 15. Now, why is this so important? Well, what's going to happen is as this thing begins to uptrend, we're going to see a pump approaching the event, in my opinion. And I think the market's going to get a bounce on Monday. This may help NIO to some extent, but that's going to depend on what news comes out. Then, after the event comes out on Tuesday, everything could change if Apple gets a rug pull or not. I'm not sure about that. But for now, until we approach Tuesday, the market should try to uptrend. If you look at Tesla has been making higher highs and higher lows, just very slowly on an uptrend right about here. So the question is, could we get this bounce and try pushing higher? We're getting tighter, if anything, and we're going to be watching if Tesla could hold above the 200. So far, it's holding above its EMA. SPY is going to likely just end up at 445, but we have this inverse head and shoulders structure and a potential cross in the PPO for a temporary push to the upside. So there is still potential. We can see we made this higher high and a higher low, and there is potential for it to try to close and push even higher to 448 plus towards these key levels. We also have this like gap that's unfilled at 449. I could see SPY pushing a little bit higher. So there's potential for it. For Apple as well, Nvda, we have to try to hold support at the 200 EMA. If it holds and bounces, there is potential for it too. 448 to 450 is going to be a key support. So we're going to be watching all of that. So it looks to me like, okay, approaching Apple's event, the market should try to bounce. SPY should try to bounce, push up just temporarily on Monday. So should Tesla, so should Apple, so should the QQQ and Nvidia. These things should try bouncing and pushing, approaching Apple's big event. We also have this inverse head and shoulders like structure on the QQQ, so I could be watching and try to get its way higher above 375 going into early next week. So the market may push up, and this could add some bullish pressure for NIO. But the problem with NIO is that we're on this downtrend. It's starting to lose that like really bearish momentum because it dropped yesterday to about 9.92, and that's where we hit today, forming this double bottom. There's a slight bullish divergence, but it's not really that significant, and it's trying to base around $10. You guys could see quite clearly. So there's a potential bounce that could be coming to about 10.3 with the market. And I think that from a technical standpoint, the odds do favor NIO trying to push a little bit higher to like 10.25 to 10.3. But here's the thing. There are no guarantees. As of right now, there's no guarantee it's going to happen because it depends on the macroeconomic news. As long as there's no like really bad news involving China and Chinese data, NIO should try to bounce, and I think the odds favor it. NIO is oversold. It's been dropping like crazy for the last 4 days. So it's time for this thing to try to bounce, in my opinion. We're going to be watching this previous resistance becoming, or this previous support becoming resistance around 10.25. I think NIO is going to bounce. That's my prediction. I think the odds greatly favor that. So we're going to be watching for that potentially to happen. Watch for a bounce above 10, and let's see if NIO could try to base around these levels. So hopefully this video was very helpful for everyone out there. I want the best for all of you. I thank you all so much for listening. Please remain calm, cool, and collected. And I think there's a good chance that as long as there's no bad news from the economic standpoint or involving China, NIO should try to get back to 10.3. But we need to see it based around $10 first. If there's a bad news that comes out involving China, then yes, everything could change. But my guts tells me it's finally time for there to be a 10.3 test for NIO. All right, guys. So thank you for listening. Have a great day. Remain calm, cool, and collected. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you and peace out.